Tonight's investigation begins with a simple but urgent question. In moments of war and global tension, are we being told the full story? Or are we being guided toward a version of reality, carefully shaped by politics, alliances, and power? Because history has shown us something undeniable. When conflict begins, truth is often the first casualty. From Iraq to Afghanistan to the ongoing tensions in the Middle East, the narratives presented to the public have not always reflected the complete picture. And now, as tensions surrounding Iran once again dominate headlines, the same question returns. Are we witnessing facts or a carefully constructed narrative? The language of war is powerful. It defines who is seen as a threat and who is seen as justified. In recent coverage of rising tensions involving Iran, a familiar pattern has emerged. We are told this is a defensive necessity, a preemptive action, a response to an imminent threat. But when we examine the claims more closely, questions begin to surface. For decades, warnings about Iran developing nuclear weapons have been repeated across political speeches and media platforms. Each time, the timeline appears urgent. Months away, just years from capability. And yet, those predictions have continued for over 20 years. In 2015, a major diplomatic breakthrough was reached. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known as the JCPOA, was signed between Iran and several world powers, including the United States. Under this agreement, Iran committed to strict limitations on its nuclear program. International inspectors were granted access. Enrichment levels were capped. Stockpiles were reduced. Multiple international monitoring bodies reported compliance. But in 2018, the United States withdrew from the agreement, reintroducing sanctions and increasing tensions. Since then, diplomacy has struggled to regain momentum. This raises an important question. If a diplomatic framework once existed, why did it collapse? And what replaced it? As tensions rise, media coverage becomes central in shaping public perception. The way events are reported, the language used, even the headlines themselves, can influence how millions understand a conflict. In some cases, critics argue that similar events are framed differently depending on who is involved. When attacks occur, one side's actions may be described in clear and direct terms, while the other may be presented with ambiguity. This difference in framing does not always change the facts, but it can change how those facts are perceived. And perception, in times of war, is everything. Another critical aspect often discussed by analysts is the broader regional context. The Middle East remains one of the most strategically important regions in the world, particularly due to energy resources and geopolitical alliances. Any escalation in conflict carries global consequences. Oil markets react immediately. Global economies feel the pressure, and the risk of wider regional instability increases. History offers sobering lessons. In 2003, the invasion of Iraq was justified in part by claims of weapons of mass destruction. Those weapons were never found. Years later, investigations revealed that much of the intelligence used to support the invasion was flawed or misinterpreted. The consequences were profound. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost, a region destabilized, and a global trust deficit that still lingers today. This historical memory shapes how many observers view current events. It raises caution about how quickly narratives can form and how difficult they are to reverse. Another important dimension is international law. The concept exists to provide a framework for resolving disputes and preventing conflict, but its application is often debated. Different countries interpret legality in different ways, especially when national security is involved. Some argue that international law must be upheld consistently. Others believe it must adapt to evolving threats. But one question remains constant. Who decides when force is justified? And under what conditions? Beyond politics and policy, there is a human cost that cannot be ignored. Every escalation impacts civilians, families displaced, communities disrupted. lives changed forever. And yet, not all tragedies receive equal attention. Media coverage can vary in intensity, detail, and emotional tone. Some events dominate headlines for days, while others pass with limited visibility. This imbalance, whether intentional or not, shapes public empathy and, ultimately, public opinion. Experts in media studies often point out that modern information ecosystems are complex. Traditional journalism now competes with social media, independent platforms, and alternative news sources. This creates both opportunity and risk. More voices can be heard, but misinformation can also spread more easily. For viewers, this means one thing: critical thinking has never been more important. Understanding sources, comparing perspectives, questioning assumptions. Because in a world of constant information, clarity requires effort. As we examine the current situation involving Iran, it becomes clear that there are no simple answers. There are competing narratives, conflicting interests, and deeply rooted historical tensions. But there is also a shared responsibility to seek truth beyond headlines, to ask difficult questions, and to remain aware of how information is presented. Because in the end, an informed public is the strongest defense against misinformation. The question is no longer just what is happening. The real question is, how are we being told what is happening? In a world where information travels faster than ever, the responsibility to think critically belongs to all of us. Because understanding the truth requires more than just listening. It requires questioning. Thank you for watching. If you found this investigation valuable, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing so more people can stay informed. Stay aware, stay informed, and to all our viewers around the world, Ramadan Mubarak.